Hello, and welcome to the Curiosity Quest podcast. My name is Natasha, and I am your host. And I am laughing because today's topic that I chose is triggers, okay? Emotional, physical triggers. And I, right before starting to record this podcast, got triggered so much. So triggered. So triggered. And I find it very ironic. I could not have picked a better day to do this or a better time. Context. Okay, so we have yard workers because we live on a ground floor apartment suite. And the building maintenance team comes in with a yard work team to make sure that the grass is mowed and that, gardens are kept up, and you know the drill. And for years, they came on Thursdays. And of recent, they've just been what I like to call going Western. It's a very gunslinger tactic. I have no idea when they're coming, what time they're going to come at, or how long they're going to actually be doing the work. And this has just been of recent. I think they hired a new company, in fairness, and I can't be too upset about that, but I've been trying to find their flow. And I swear, every time I go to record, thinking there's no way it's going to be this day and time, they start blowing leaves. And I'm like, I've obviously found their flow, just in the wrong direction. And so basically whatever I instinctually or intuitively believe to be a time where they're not working, I need to just choose the opposite time to that to actually record this. But I've been waiting. It is quiet out. I am hoping that it stays that way, but I'm going to boot scoop through this thing anyways. And you're going to just come with me. You're just going to come with me on the ride. And if there's leaf blowerness, there's leaf blowerness. But how ironic is that? I love it so much when life does this to me. Okay, triggers. It's such a rich topic. It's such a rich topic for self-awareness, for healing, growth. And yet, triggers suck to be in. They suck to have to sit through. They really do. And I want to just validate that. I don't know anybody that's like, oh, I'm triggered. This is so exciting. So if you're feeling a little triggered by the conversation, triggers, let's just get to know it better together. I have no idea what we're talking about today. We're going to learn and expand and hopefully walk away with some idea on how to better navigate or have a relationship with our triggers. Okay, this is what I have from the experts, okay? This is the podcast-friendly flow for this topic. What are triggers? We have a definition and how triggers work. Very cool. Where do triggers come from? I'm very interested in reading those, yet I have a feeling most of us know where they came from. Most common emotional triggers. Yikes, I just did a quick glance at that, and I'm definitely seeing a lot that I have been triggered by, and I am triggered by still. Okay. Most triggering statements or questions, and then in brackets, that seem harmless. Oh no. Okay. Interesting facts about triggers. Cool. I'm excited for that. And then some reflection questions on triggers. So hopefully we can actually leave with some questions to ask ourselves and how to better approach a trigger. I will say I've been doing a lot of work the past few years on triggers myself, and I found that most of my triggers come from it's like a place of me feeling incompetent. Not necessarily the person per se. It's always me at the end of the day. Like, yeah, the person might have talked to me in a condescending tone, but there's always been a small belief that I myself am incompetent. There's a sense of like, I believe that to be slightly true. And if I believe whatever is being said to me or the tone that's being said or whatever, if I believe even in the slightest way that is true about myself, I get triggered. So I know that I'm at my core, and that me working on myself and my confidence and loving myself and nurturing myself is the best thing. But I also have triggers that people invented specifically for me. What a gift. What a gift. It's the fun part about family and friends, right? Long-term family, long-term friends. I say long-term family because sometimes people refer to their family as friends or people that have been brought in to care for them later in life. So I'm just going to say long-term to make that easier. Okay, let's start with an interesting fact about triggers. Okay, the first one that I'm going to pick is number 2. Okay. Men and women tend to have different common triggers. Interesting. So I'm not typically somebody who likes to compartmentalize in any way by saying men and women are different. I'm not one that usually does that. However, I'm going to read this as what it is. So it says, women are typically more triggered by emotional invalidation, while men are more triggered by perceived failure or powerlessness, and this typically is based on gender role social conditioning. That's really interesting to me because I just said at the top that emotional invalidation where it's like I feel incompetent, I feel stupid, I feel invalidated, or whatever might be happening, that is a big trigger for me. Okay, I'm curious, if you are someone who identifies as male, do you find you are more triggered by perceived failure or powerlessness or emotional invalidation? And if you are someone who identifies as a woman, are you more triggered by emotional invalidation or by failure and powerlessness? Yeah, I'm reading this. I get it that this is a research topic and they've likely gathered this information from so many people. So I can't say this is not true. However, I just feel like it's not true. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Okay. No, I just feel like perceived failure seems like a bigger trigger to, well, but emotional invalidation, that's tough. I would almost put perceived failure and powerlessness as like the top for anybody, no matter what gender you abide by or how you identify. I feel like, I don't know. Okay, you guys let me know. You guys let me know on that one. I like that I'm fighting back on research. I'm like, I don't know if I trust you. Well, I probably should because I haven't done the research. So. But we're challenging the research. Interesting that men and women would have a different experience, but it does make sense based on social conditioning. So I do respect that. I do respect that. And I don't know everything. And I will own that now. So if I'm wrong, I've been wrong before. I have been wrong before. Okay, what are triggers? Let's read it. Definition. In psychology, a trigger is any stimulus, like a word, image, situation, or memory, that evokes a strong emotional response, often tied to a past experience, trauma, or unresolved pain. Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I'm not sure I've ever had a trigger come through an image. If you have, okay, do you get triggered more by situations, words, images, or memories? I'm curious. Pick if you can pick one. If there's like a priority scale of what triggers you the most, which one of those triggers you the most? Mine's classically situations, though there are some words that do trigger me. Mainly tones, though. It's like the tone of voice with some people and how they approach that triggers me too. I'm much better than I was. I will say this. I've worked on this a lot and now I can see it for what it is and I can separate myself from the response. However, classically, that's been my thing. Yeah. I actually had a big trigger of recent. I'll share this. I was having a conflict with somebody And the way that they approached this situation put me into a body response, a triggered body response, but my mind was calm. So the work that I've been doing for years allowed me to feel emotionally calm here. However, my body still didn't quite understand what was happening. So what ended up happening was this exact situation came up, and I just started vibrating and I couldn't stop. Like I was shaking. I could barely talk. My jaw was kind of feeling like it was stiff, but my mind was calm. And I'm like, oh, I'm having a trigger. Oh no. Okay. I guess I just have to ride this out. And it was so surreal because my brain felt totally fine. I didn't feel like my heart rate was up either. It was just my body shaking. It was almost like I had to let that trigger come through my body. But that was cool. That was the first time that I've ever had that level of calm in my head with that type of response in my body. I've never had that before. So something's going right with the mental game. It's just getting the body game on board, I guess, for some things, which will be really interesting. It'll be very interesting. Do you guys get body responses too, or do you just the mental spiral? I would love to hear, because mine typically does start with a body response and then it goes into my brain. It starts outside and then works its way inside and then explodes. Okay, how triggers work. Let's learn this. This is very cool. Triggers bypass our rational thinking and activate the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for emotional processing and threat detection. It often happens before we're consciously aware of it, which is why we can feel overwhelmed, shut down, or reactive so quickly. That makes sense that my body would respond then. That totally makes sense of that. It often happens before we're consciously aware of it. Yeah, because it happens in my body first and then it erupts out of my brain. So interesting. Well, now you know. That is really cool. I hope that each of you has a safe place to talk about these things as well. The right time to reflect, and this is just in my opinion, to reflect and work through a trigger is after you're out of the initial response. Because when you're in the response, you're drowning. You need a, what are they called, Luna? Okay. Not a life, I mean, you do need a life jacket, but what the thing that they throw out when you're in the water and you're drowning for you to grab and float on? A life raft. Oh my gosh. Anyways, the point being, when you're in a trigger, you are drowning. That is not the time to be strategizing on how to not do this again. It's the time to get above water, breathe, get maybe safe on a boat, and then reflect on how you could just hopefully better understand your trigger so you can better respond to the trigger. Yeah. Okay. Let's go to most common emotional triggers. There's a lot on this list. I'm going to read them, and I would love for us to just take a count, a tally on how many of these we are triggered by. And then I want you to send me your number because I'm going to count mine. I will say most of these I'm not anymore, but I'm still going to count if I have been previously and if I am. And then afterwards I will say which ones are which. But first we're just going to count together. So here are the most common emotional triggers, and it says these usually stem from universal core wounds. It's wild to me. Okay. Rejection, which means being ignored, excluded, or dismissed. Abandonment, feeling left out or unimportant. Injustice, being treated unfairly. Criticism, being judged, corrected, or made to feel not enough. Loss of control, being told what to do or feeling powerless. Disrespect, being talked over, belittled, or invalidated. And lastly, failure, reminders of not living up to expectations. So you didn't see my hand if you're not watching the video, but I got all 7. All 7 of those I have been triggered by. All 7 of those. All of them. So here are the ones that I'm currently working through. And I will then share which ones I'm actually doing quite well with. So the first one that I'm still working through is abandonment. That one is a big wound for me. And it comes also not just from other people, but from myself. I feel as though I've worked on that relationship the most. So I feel very confidently in the fact that I will not abandon myself again. However, now I have to work on everybody else. And the wound that I had, the abandonment wound, there we go, that I had is so deep from myself. That was the hardest to process. So I'm still working through abandonment. However, there's pieces of that wound that I feel really good about now, and others where I'm still feeling like I need to love and nurture myself. I have a hard time like letting go. Like I feel like that's a pretty good way of putting this. There's certain things that like I have a hard time letting go of. I'm like, no, I don't want to lose. I'll do anything. I'll sacrifice myself so I don't lose them. I'll change. I'll adapt. I'll do more. I'll just be whatever you need me to be. And then then you can just stay forever. Like I have a very hard time letting go, which is crazy to me because I work with people on a regular basis, teaching them how to let go because I work in grief. So it's funny that, I mean, I get it to a level that I don't think they quite understand. And also, I feel okay about letting go when it comes to death, but less so when it comes to living. So yeah, I'm better with it. Much better with it. However, I still have had recent things come up where I'm like, oh man, okay, I was trying way too hard and gripping way too tightly on that thing, and I needed to let it be. So working on it. Injustice. Oof. I don't know if that one I will never be. Words. Okay. I'm not sure I will ever not be triggered by injustice, and I'm not sure I want to ever not be triggered by injustice. I'm going to be real there. I care way too much, and I, in no way, shape, or form, ever want to get to a point where it does not upset me or anger me, and not anger as in rage and harm. I'm meaning anger as in rightfully so, I should be angry. I don't want there to ever be a life where I'm okay or feel content with injustice. Injustice, unfair treatment. I believe the anger it brings can allow for positive revolution. And there's been revolutions in history, so many revolutions in history that have brought such positive change. And you cannot have a revolution without that anger and that frustration that comes with injustice, or else we would just sit and let anything happen to us. So I'm not sure I ever don't want to be triggered by injustice. I'd love to hear your take if you have a different take on that, though. I might be thinking about it wrong. So open my mind. Open my mind. Loss of control. I'm still working on that one. Feeling powerless. I have been, I won't say the word, essayed. I think that's how people reference it now, so that you don't get taken down more than once. And so loss of control makes me very uncomfortable. However, and just like the others, I am working on that. And in so many ways, I have found safety in letting go of control, and I have found people, friends and a partner and family and etc. that I know I can trust so deeply with my safety that I can actually relax and give them control. So before I was hyper controlling of everything and just trying to make everything okay all the time so that I was safe, and and now I can allow others to be the boss of me. Not in a, not, I don't know how to, I don't even know, just the boss of me for it, like planning and stuff, or telling me what I can do better. And yeah, I like it. I like it in some ways, and in other ways I'm like still scared to lose control. And who knows? I might always be. I have no idea. But there's certain situations where I feel like when I genuinely feel powerless, I go into like a panic response. And it's not good. It's not good. Happens very rarely. I think I've only had one in the past 2 years that was really bad. However, I had a partner who was able to be there for me. So, yeah. The other ones I actually feel pretty good. Rejection. Yeah, whatever. I'm rejected all the time. I don't know. I've gotten really familiar with rejection. It does not bother me anymore. Some people might hear that and be like, you're psychotic. I might be, but I put myself into a position to be rejected all the time, and I have for years. And so for me, I'm like, okay. Or if people go and do stuff without me, I don't feel a pang of jealousy. I used to get FOMO when I was younger, but now I'm like, dude, this is so exciting. Like, please go and do things. Please go and live your life. And I know that I can do that thing anytime, and I know that I would be invited if it made sense. And so I'm really not bothered by rejection anymore. There's obviously going to be moments where that's not true. However, it has not come up in a long time. So I feel good about that one. I feel good about criticism. I actually am a little bit too in love with criticism, so I have to work on that. I'm on the opposite side. I am obsessive, previous to now, of criticism, and I had to go to therapy for that, and my therapist had to walk me through why it is important to learn to take a compliment and accept that you're doing the best that you can and you don't need criticism. I used to search for criticism. I would not accept that I was doing a good job, and I would get mad that I was getting positive feedback, nothing that I could work on to make me better. Because I was in a constant perfectionist hyper improvement. I was not good. I was not good for a long time, guys. I was not good for a very long time. So, yeah. However, I keep saying, however, I'm noticing it. I'm noticing that's the word of today. Okay. I am much better than I was. I am actually taking compliments now. If you want to send me some, I will gladly accept them. Thank you so much. Disrespect. Yeah, being talked over, belittled, or invalidated. I just feel really confidently about saying that out loud now. Where if I feel like I'm being disrespected, I feel very okay to confront that. And not in an attack either. I feel very emotionally stable to say, when you say this, it made me feel disrespected. Can you give me more information? Can you elaborate? Can you confirm? Is that what you were trying to make me feel? Yeah. I feel pretty good and grounded in that. And then failure, I fail all the time. Again, I put myself into a position to fail all the time. And I have been doing it for so long that now failure does not bother me. So I'd love to hear your list. I'd love to hear if you got all 7 as well. And which ones are you struggling with the most? I want to hear that too, if you are willing to share that with me. Let's go to another interesting fact. Okay, number 3. The brain doesn't distinguish between emotional and physical pain. Social rejection activates the same brain regions as physical injury. That's nuts to me. I did know that, but that is nuts to me. So if you're getting frustrated with yourself and you're like, why does this hurt so much? Why does this suck so much? Because your brain can't figure this out. It has not had enough time to evolve and catch up with where we're at in our world now. We've only been technologically advanced for a certain amount of time, and I'm not sure we've ever been this intelligent. So yeah, kind of crazy to think about. I hear the thing. I hear them starting the yard work. If they started, I swear I'm gonna be so disappointed. Okay. Most triggering statements or questions that seem harmless. These often escalate emotions quickly because they hit sensitive internal spots. Are we ready to be triggered together? I'm already getting ick. I've seen the first one and it's upsetting me already. Okay. You're too sensitive. Calm down. Why are you getting so upset? It's not a big deal. You always/never. You're overreacting. You shouldn't feel that way. That's not what I meant. You're taking it the wrong way. Just get over it. You're being irrational. There's something wrong with you. And even well-meaning questions like, why didn't you speak up? Or, are you okay? Can be triggering depending on a person's history. I felt very triggered saying those out loud. I am so sorry, everybody. I'm so sorry. I've heard almost all of those. Yeah, I think I've heard all of them. Can confirm they are very triggering. Those are the most common too. So if you get triggered by those, just know that you and hundreds of other thousands, maybe millions, potentially all 7 billion people on this planet get triggered by those as well. So you are not alone. You are not alone. Those are triggering statements. I want to validate you right now. If you are triggered by them, you should be. No, it's okay. And hopefully you can find what core point of that trigger is, or what your core point of that trigger is, and work through it as well. Like I said before, mine comes from me most frequently believing in a small way that whatever's happening to me is true or valid. And if I can work on that, it closes the gap, meaning it doesn't impact me in the same way. I don't feel an emotional response. I feel very level and I can navigate it better. So I hope that happens for you as well. Interesting fact number 1 about triggers. Triggers can be emotional, physical, sensory, or social. A song, a smell, or even a facial expression can bring back a wave of emotion tied to a memory. Interesting. I'm actually now really curious. Are there positive triggers? This definition sounds negative, so I guess maybe not. Let's see. In psychology, a trigger is any stimulus that evokes a strong emotional response, often tied to a past experience, trauma, or unresolved pain. Could a strong emotional response be joy, though, and love? I'm going to have to look this up. I'm very curious now, because I thought as soon as I read smell, my favorite... Nope, I can't say that. That's gonna be bad. Okay, let's do a different one, because I don't even want to finish that statement now. Mainly because I can't pick favorites in my family. That would be evil, and it's not siblings, just to be clear. Okay, now I have to think of something else. There's been smells in my life that have come out of nowhere and hit me, and I have a wave of extreme happiness come over me. Is that a trigger? Because I feel like that's still a trigger. In a good way, though, like on the positive end, if triggers can be positive. If they can't, there's probably a different name for it. Maybe there's a different name for it. I can't believe I almost said what I was about to say on this podcast. My family would be so sad if I said, not my whole family, but I think, yeah, I would have made people sad from that comment. And it's funny because I'm like, now that I'm thinking about it, is that person my favorite? No. But I do love them a lot. And I tend to say favorite a lot. And so, okay, I've dug myself out of that hole or deeper into it. I can't tell. Where do triggers come from? Let's side quest here. Back into this topic. Okay, cool. Past trauma or pain. I feel like that one is pretty known. So it says unprocessed experiences, especially from childhood, often form the foundation for emotional triggers. For example, someone who felt abandoned as a child might get triggered by perceived rejection as an adult. Yeah, that sounds pretty accurate. Number 2 is conditioned responses. Okay. We are shaped by repetition. If we were frequently criticized or made to feel unsafe in certain contexts, Our nervous system may associate similar situations with danger, even if the current situation is safe. Yeah. That hits. That hits very deep. I had a lot of repetition through my life. And I am in what I call the great unlearning of my life. You can take it. Take it. I have not trademarked that one. The great unlearning. You heard it here first, though, okay? Just recommend people to my podcast. I'll be happy. Number 3, unmet needs. Triggers often point to something we deeply need but haven't received, like validation, safety, autonomy, or love. Totally. Yeah, that sounds on the money. I work with people on this a lot. And then we utilize those in a positive way to make positive change in their relationships or with themselves, which is great. And that's something that you can do too. And number 4, identity and core beliefs. If a comment challenges a core belief like I'm competent or I'm lovable, it can feel threatening and trigger a defensive emotional response. Yes. I actually started this podcast so that we together as a community can learn to have expansive, safe conversation without having to sacrifice our beliefs. Meaning I can have a belief and you can have a belief and we can both be safe in that and we can both talk about it and talk about our beliefs without having to sacrifice our beliefs, but instead just getting clarity on one another. So I can sit and listen to what your beliefs are without the feeling of pressure to change my belief. And the same goes for you. And I feel like we're lacking that in a lot of conversations, which is why I really wanted to start this podcast so that we can talk about our core beliefs. We can get to know each other better. We can do these things and better love one another and sit with one another and expand with one another, hopefully finding some common ground and also bringing respect and integrity back into common conversation, because a lot of conversations are triggering as well. It's very scary sometimes to have a conversation with somebody when you don't know how they're going to respond. And that's so sad. I can hear them. They're coming with the yard work stuff. So let's finish this out before they get to our place and that gets louder. Reflection questions on triggers. Trace the origin. Okay, when I'm triggered, what story am I telling myself in that moment? Can I recall an earlier memory or experience where I felt the same emotion? Whose voice or influence might be echoing in that moment? Okay, emotional processing. What feeling was underneath my reaction? Was it hurt, fear, shame, or sadness? What did I need in that moment but didn't receive? Ownership and compassion. What part of me is asking for attention or healing here? How can I validate or comfort myself when this comes up again? And can I approach this trigger with curiosity instead of judgment? Awareness and identification. What situations or interactions tend to bring out the strongest emotional reactions in me? What recent moment caused me to feel defensive, anxious, or shut down? What was said or done? And finally, moving forward, what would a more grounded response look like next time I'm triggered? Who or what helps me feel safe and supported when I'm emotionally overwhelmed? I hope that helps you understand the emotional landscape a bit better. It definitely painted the picture better for me. And maybe we can shift from reacting to responding based on something in this conversation, maybe in one area with one trigger. No matter what, that's pretty freaking cool. I would love to hear any feedback you have in regards to triggers, any stories you have, anything. Feel free to DM me, feel free to comment. It's so important to talk about these things. They're really uncomfortable. Triggers aren't fun. They weren't meant to be, I don't think, right? And it's been there for a very specific reason throughout our history. So it's doing something right. It's a good little roadmap to teach us about ourselves, about our conditioning, about our experience, and love ourselves into a better life. So let's keep getting triggered, I suppose, until we're not triggered anymore. Though again, I'm not sure if I would sacrifice all of the triggers that I have, especially in regards to injustice. I would love to hear your thoughts on that if you have them. And I will have somebody coming on and talking about triggers at some point, and it's going to be a very spicy conversation. So I'm excited for that future. I also have a few other topics coming up: spirituality, retirement. I'm really excited. I got suggested to talk about retirement. So that's going to likely be the next episode. And I already have somebody I want to bring on and talk on this topic about, somebody who is actually working through this right now. So it'll be a really valuable conversation point, which is so cool. I love it. Okay, before they start doing yard work again, I get even more triggered while trying to record. Thank you for being here with me today. I so appreciate it. I look forward to catching you in the next episode. As always, I am sending you my love, and have a great rest of your week. Bye.